A black nurse lived alone in a white neighborhood. When she saw her front door open that night, her hands trembled as she dialed a number that would change everything. Olivia Johnson's shoes squeaked against the hospital's linoleum floor as she rushed toward room 342. The sound of monitors beeping grew louder with each step. Her patient's heart rate had dropped dangerously low again. "Come on, Mr. Peterson, not today," she muttered, pushing through the door. The elderly man lay motionless on the bed, his chest barely rising. Her hands moved automatically, checking vitals, adjusting medication. 12 hours into her shift, and this was the third time she'd had to stabilize him. The clock on the wall read 6:43 p.m. 17 minutes until her replacement arrived. "Nurse Johnson?" A weak voice called from the bed. "Am I dying?" Olivia checked his pulse, stronger now. "Not on my watch, Mr. Peterson. Your heart's just being stubborn today." He managed a small smile. "Like my wife used to say." The monitor's beeping steadied. Olivia recorded the incident in his chart, her handwriting precise despite her exhaustion. As she finished, Sarah, the night nurse, appeared in the doorway. "Rough day?" Sarah asked, noting Olivia's tense shoulders. "Mr. Peterson's keeping us on our toes." Olivia handed over the chart. "BP dropped 3 times today. I've adjusted his medication, but keep an eye on him." Sarah nodded, already scanning the notes. "Got it. Hey, did you hear about the break-ins?" Olivia's hand tightened on her bag. "What break-ins?" "2 houses hit in the neighborhood next to yours last night. They're saying it's the same crew that's been working their way through the suburbs." The memory flashed unbidden. She was 15 again, hiding in her closet while strangers ransacked her family's home. The sound of her mother's muffled screams, her father's futile struggles. "Olivia?" Sarah's voice pulled her back. "You okay?" "Yeah, just tired." She forced a smile. "Thanks for the heads up." Walking through the parking lot, Olivia pulled out her phone. 3 missed calls from Mike. She hit redial as she reached her car. "Hey, babe." Mike's voice was apologetic. "Got called in for a night shift. Some big operation going down. Everything okay?" "Can't say much, but it's all hands on deck." "Rain check on dinner." Olivia unlocked her car, scanning the darkening parking lot. "Sure. Be safe out there." "Always am." "Hey, make sure you lock up properly, I know." She smiled despite her worry. "Go catch some bad guys." The drive home took her past manicured lawns and identical houses. Mrs. Watson from number 23 was walking her poodle, same as every evening. She barely nodded at Olivia, same as every evening. A police cruiser rolled by slowly. Not Mike's unit. The officer inside gave her a long look as he passed. Olivia kept her hands visible on the steering wheel, a habit she'd learned young. Her house came into view, modest but well-kept, with fresh paint and neat flower beds. The only home on the block with security cameras at every corner. Mike had helped her install them after she bought the place. The garage door groaned as it opened. Olivia pulled in, going through her mental checklist. Garage door down. Car locked. Door to house locked. Security system armed. Inside, she dropped her bag and kicked off her shoes. The house felt empty without Mike's presence. Usually, he'd be here on Thursdays, making his terrible attempts at cooking dinner while telling her about his day. The TV droned in the background as she heated up leftover pasta. News about the break-ins filled the screen. Series of professional burglaries continues to plague suburban Minneapolis. Olivia turned it off. She didn't need the reminder. Her security system was top-notch, her doors solid, her windows reinforced. She was safe here. After dinner, she went through her nightly routine. Check all windows, locked. Back door, locked and barred. Front door, locked, deadbolt engaged. Security cameras, all functioning. Her phone buzzed with a text from Mike. "Missing you. Stay alert tonight, okay?" She typed back, "Always do. Be careful out there." The shower's hot water helped ease her tight muscles. As steam filled the bathroom, Olivia tried to shake off Sarah's warning about the break-ins. The security system's steady green light blinked through the bathroom window, reassuring. Later in bed, she scrolled through her phone. More news about the burglaries. They were getting closer to her neighborhood. Professional jobs, the article said. No witnesses, no evidence left behind. Sleep came fitfully. She dreamed of broken windows and masked figures, of her mother's screams mixing with the sound of shattering glass. The next morning arrived with gray skies and a light drizzle. Olivia's alarm blared at 5:30 a.m., another 12-hour shift ahead. She went through her morning routine on autopilot. Coffee, shower, scrubs, hair pulled back tight. The news played quietly as she ate breakfast. No new break-ins reported overnight. The security system beeped as she disabled it. One last check of all the locks before leaving. Everything secure. Outside, her neighbors were starting their days too. Mr. Chen watering his roses. The Williams kids waiting for their school bus. Normal morning in a normal neighborhood. Olivia backed out of her garage, the door closing automatically behind her. The hospital was a 20-minute drive away. She'd make it just in time for her 7 a.m. shift. The last thing she noticed as she drove away was how peaceful her house looked in the morning light. White walls, blue trim, cameras barely visible unless you knew where to look. A safe place. Her place. She had no way of knowing it would be the last time she'd see it undisturbed. 12 hours later, Olivia's car rolled into her street. Her shoulders ached from lifting patients, and her feet throbbed in her shoes. The digital clock on her dashboard read 7:13 p.m. All she wanted was a hot shower in her bed. The first warning sign came as she approached her house. A flicker of movement in her living room window. Just a shadow, but enough to make her pulse quicken. "You're being paranoid," she whispered to herself. But her hands gripped the steering wheel tighter. The second sign was worse. Her front door stood slightly ajar, a thin line of light spilling onto the porch. The door she'd checked 3 times that morning. The door that was never, ever left unlocked. Olivia's foot hit the brake pedal hard. Her car stopped in the middle of the street, engine still running. Through her windshield, she could see light flooding through her windows. Lights she hadn't left on. "No, no, no." Her voice came out as a whisper. Her phone lay on the passenger seat, screen dark. She reached for it with trembling fingers. Mike! She had to call Mike. The phone slipped in her sweaty grip as she tried to unlock it. 3 attempts before her fingerprint registered. Her recent calls list appeared. Mike's name at the top. The call went straight to voicemail. "Mike, it's me. Someone's in my house. I need—" Her voice cracked. She hung up and dialed again. Voicemail. A shadow passed behind her living room curtains. Tall. Male. Not Mike. Olivia's throat closed up. She was 15 again, watching strange men move through her family's house. Hearing glass break. Hearing screams focus, she told herself. Her car still idled in the street. Anyone inside could look out and see her. She eased her foot off the brake, letting the car roll forward. Past her house. Past her driveway. To the darker spot under the maple tree 2 houses down. Her hands shook as she turned off the engine. The street was quiet. Too quiet. Where were her neighbors? Why weren't their lights on? Another shadow moved across her windows. 2 people. At least 2 inside her house. Olivia's phone felt heavy in her hand. 911. She should call 911. But her thumb hovered over the keypad, frozen. What if they came out while she was on the phone? What if they saw her? What if they had guns, like the men who'd broken into her childhood home? A car turned onto her street. Headlights swept across her face. For a terrifying moment, she thought it would stop, but it continued past, leaving her in darkness. The sound of breaking glass came from her house. Sharp, distinct, something valuable shattering on her hardwood floors. Her fingers finally moved, dialing 911. 1 ring, 2 rings. 911. What's your emergency? Olivia forced her voice to stay steady. Someone's broken into my house. 1247 Maple Street. There are at least 2 people inside. Are you in a safe location? Yes. I'm in my car down the street. I just got home from work and saw another crash from inside the house. Louder this time. Please hurry. Officers are being dispatched. Stay on the line with me. Can you see anyone inside? Olivia squinted through the darkness. Shadows. 2 or 3 people moving around. The lights are on inside. I can see them through the windows. Do you know if they're armed? I don't. She stopped. A third shadow had appeared, broader than the others. There's another one. At least 3 people now. Her phone buzzed with an incoming call. "Mike, I have another call coming in. It's my boyfriend. He's a police officer." "Stay on the line," the dispatcher insisted. "I'll relay any information to responding units." The buzzing stopped. A text appeared, in middle of operation. "Everything okay?" Olivia's fingers flew across the screen. 911. "House broken into. At least 3 inside." 3 dots appeared as Mike typed. Then stopped. Started again. Stopped. More movement in her house. The shadows were moving with purpose, not the random searching she'd expect from ordinary burglars. They knew what they were looking for. A light came on upstairs. Her bedroom. "They're upstairs now," she told the dispatcher. "In my bedroom. Officers are 4 minutes out. They're approaching with lights off." "Stay hidden." Olivia slid lower in her seat. From this angle, she could still see her house, but anyone looking out would have trouble spotting her. Her phone buzzed again. "Mike, coming. Don't go near house." As if she needed that warning. The memory of her father's face, bloody and swollen after trying to confront the intruders years ago, was warning enough. A dog barked somewhere down the street. The shadows upstairs froze. One moved to the window. Olivia stopped breathing. Had they seen her? Did they know she was out here? The shadow moved away from the window. The dog fell silent. 2 minutes, the dispatcher said. Officers are on surrounding streets. 2 minutes. 120 seconds. Each one stretching like an hour, as Olivia watched strangers move through her home. They were in her study now. More crashes. Papers hitting the floor. Drawers being yanked open. What were they looking for? She kept no valuables in the house. No jewelry worth stealing. No large amounts of cash. A car alarm chirped in the distance. The shadows stilled again. 1 minute, according to the dispatcher. Olivia's legs had gone numb from crouching in her car seat. Sweat ran down her back despite the cool evening air. Movement on her front porch. One of them was coming out. "Someone's leaving the house," she whispered into the phone. "Officers are nearly there. Do not engage. Stay hidden." The figure on the porch was male, dressed in dark clothes. He stood in her doorway, head turning left and right, scanning the street. Olivia pressed herself further down in her seat. Her heart pounded so hard she was sure it must be audible. The man spoke. She couldn't hear the words, but his head was turned back into the house, talking to the others. "Units arriving now," the dispatcher said. In the distance, Olivia saw them. Dark shapes moving up her street on foot. Police officers with weapons drawn, using the shadows for cover. The man on her porch was still looking the wrong way. 30 seconds. A police radio crackled, barely audible. The man's head snapped toward the sound. 20 seconds. He stepped back into the house. The door closed. 10 seconds. Olivia heard the locks engage. Her own locks being used against her. The first officer reached her car, crouching beside it. Others moved past, encircling her house. The shadows inside had vanished, but she knew they were still there, waiting, just like she was. "Ma'am, I need you to move to my squad car." The officer beside Olivia's car spoke in a whisper, his hand steady on his holstered weapon. "Stay low and move quick." Olivia's legs felt like concrete. She'd been crouched in the same position for what felt like hours, though her phone showed only 12 minutes had passed since she'd first spotted the open door. "Can you move?" the officer asked. She nodded, her hand fumbling for the door handle. It clicked open with a sound that seemed too loud in the quiet street. "Now," he said. Olivia slid out of her car, crouching behind it. The officer's hand gripped her elbow, guiding her across the pavement. Her scrubs caught on the asphalt as she crawled. The squad car sat 30 feet away, hidden in the shadow of a large oak tree. Other officers moved around them, their footsteps nearly silent on the suburban street. Inside the police car, a radio crackled softly. Perimeter established. All units in position. More police cars arrived, parking blocks away, their lights off. Olivia watched through the rear window as tactical officers in dark gear moved into position around her house. "Ms. Johnson?" A new officer appeared at her window. "I'm Sergeant Torres. We need information about your house layout." Olivia's mouth felt dry. 3 bedrooms upstairs. 2 bathrooms. The master bedroom has a balcony over the garage. Any other ways in or out? Basement windows, but they're barred. Back door through the kitchen. Side door into the garage. She swallowed hard. They shouldn't have been able to get in at all. I have a security system. Torres nodded. We saw the cameras. The system's been disabled. Disabled? Olivia's hands clenched in her lap. That's not possible. It's a professional system. These guys knew what they were doing. Torres glanced toward the house. Have you noticed anyone suspicious lately? Anyone watching your home? The memory hit her suddenly. Last week, a van parked across the street. White, unmarked. She'd thought it was for the renovations at the Peterson house. But there was a van, she said. White. No markings. It was here for 3 days last week. Did you see anyone in it? No, but... Another memory surfaced. Someone came to check my gas meter 2 weeks ago. I didn't think anything of it, but I never saw a utility truck. Torres spoke into his radio, relaying the information. The response came back immediately. Similar MO to the Carson job. The Carson job. Olivia had read about it in the paper. A family in the next suburb over. Their home invaded while they slept. The security system disabled by professionals who'd posed as utility workers days before. Her phone vibrated. Mike, 5 minutes out. SWAT team with me? A crash came from inside her house, loud enough to hear from the street. The sound of wood splintering. That's my father's desk, Olivia whispered. The antique roll-top desk that had survived 2 generations. The only piece of furniture she had from her childhood home. Another crash. Glass breaking. The china cabinet. Her grandmother's wedding china. Irreplaceable. Torres touched her shoulder. We'll get them. More police units arrived. She recognized the black SWAT van parking a block away. Mike would be in it. Her phone buzzed with texts from neighbors. Mrs. Watson, police outside your house. Everything okay? The Chens saw you pull up earlier. You safe. Even the Williamses, who usually pretended not to see her. Let us know if you need anything. A figure passed by her living room window. Then another. They were moving faster now, more erratic. They know we're here, Torres said into his radio. The response crackled back, SWAT team ready for breach. Waiting on final authorization. Olivia's hands wouldn't stop shaking. The last time, during the break-in when she was 15, the police had arrived too late. After the men had already taken what they wanted. After they'd hurt her father for trying to stop them. Movement at her front door. Someone testing the lock. Activity at primary entrance, a voice said over the radio. Olivia watched as more officers moved into position, their weapons trained on her house. Her home, the place that was supposed to be safe. The SWAT team emerged from their van, moving like shadows across the darkened street. She caught a glimpse of Mike in his tactical gear, his face set in a way she'd never seen before. Another crash from inside. Closer to the front of the house now. They're getting desperate, Torres muttered. Olivia's security cameras would be catching all of this. If they hadn't been disabled. Professional job, Torres had said. Like the Carson house. The Carsons had been home when it happened. She'd read the article 3 times. How the family had woken to find armed men in their house. How they'd been tied up while the intruders took their time, spending hours going through every room. Thank God she hadn't gone inside. A light came on in her garage. They were checking escape routes. All units, maintain positions, the radio crackled. Subjects attempting to locate exit points. More movement inside. Shadows passing quickly by windows. The sound of furniture being moved. They're barricading, Torres said into his radio. Mike's voice came back, understood. Team in position for breach. Olivia's phone buzzed again. A text from a number she didn't recognize. Hope you're not planning to come home early today. Her blood went cold. Sergeant, she held out her phone. Look at this. Torres read the message, his expression hardening. He spoke rapidly into his radio, relaying the new information. The response was immediate. Officers began moving with new urgency. The SWAT team adjusted their positions. They knew my schedule, Olivia said. Her voice sounded distant to her own ears. They knew I'd be at work. Ms. Johnson, did you tell anyone about your work hours? Post anything online about your schedule? She shook her head. Only the hospital knows my schedule. And Mike. Another text arrived from the unknown number, Nurse Johnson. Such a creature of habit. The hospital. Her schedule would be accessible to anyone with access to the staff systems. Torres was already radioing it in. Possible hospital connection. Check employee records. A loud bang came from inside the house. Then another. They were trying to make noise, create confusion. This isn't random, Olivia said. The realization hit her like a physical blow. They targeted me, specifically. The sound of breaking glass came from upstairs. Her bedroom window. Movement on the balcony. A voice called over the radio. Olivia watched as a dark figure stepped onto her bedroom balcony, then quickly moved back inside. Testing our positions, Torres said. They're getting nervous? Mike's voice came over the radio again. All units ready for breach on my mark. Olivia's phone lit up with a final message from the unknown number. Should have stayed late at work today, nurse. The street had gone completely silent. Even the usual suburban sounds, dogs barking, cars passing, children playing, had ceased. As if the whole neighborhood was holding its breath. In the distance, she heard the faint sound of more sirens approaching. But closer, from inside her house, came the sound of footsteps. Heavy boots on hardwood floors, moving with purpose. They were getting ready for something. The radio crackled one last time. All units in position. Awaiting order to breach. Olivia closed her eyes. When she opened them, she saw Mike looking in her direction from his position behind a tactical shield. He nodded once. She nodded back. The next few minutes would determine whether she'd have a home to return to. The police radio crackled to life. Negotiator 5 minutes out. Hold positions. Olivia sat in the back of the police car, her scrubs damp with sweat despite the cool evening air. The clock on the dashboard read 8:47 p.m. Almost 2 hours since she'd first seen her front door standing open. Ms. Johnson. Torres turned in his seat to face her. We need a detailed layout of your house. Every room, every closet, every possible hiding spot. Her hands trembled as she accepted the notepad he offered. The front door opens into the living room. 20 by 15 feet. 2 windows facing the street. Furniture placement? Couch against the left wall. Coffee table. 2 armchairs by the window. She sketched quickly, her nursing training making the diagram precise. Bookshelf in the corner, next to the stairs. A crash from inside the house made her jump. The pencil skittered across the paper. Keep going, Torres encouraged. What's next to the living room? Dining room on the right. Opens into the kitchen. More sketching. Island in the center of the kitchen. Back door leads to the patio. The radio buzzed. Movement in upstairs window. East side. Olivia looked up. A shadow passed across her bedroom window. They were still searching, still destroying her home piece by piece. The stairs, Torres prompted. Tell me about the stairs. Straight run up from the living room. 13 steps. She swallowed hard. Landing at the top turns right. 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms upstairs. Which bedroom is yours? Master bedroom on the left. Faces the street. Her pencil moved mechanically. Ensuite bathroom. Walk-in closet on the right wall. Balcony over the garage. A new voice crackled over the radio. Negotiator on scene. Olivia watched as a plain car pulled up silently. A woman in a bulletproof vest stepped out, conferring quickly with the tactical team. Ms. Johnson. Torres drew her attention back. The basement. Tell me about the basement. Finished. Rec room. Laundry room. Storage. She added to the diagram. For small windows, all barred. External entrance through cellar doors in the backyard, but they're padlocked. The negotiator approached their car, speaking in low tones with another officer. Olivia caught fragments. No contact yet. Need to establish. Her phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. Nice security system. Shame about the backdoor access. Torres read the message over her shoulder. They hacked your security company? Shouldn't be possible. Olivia's voice cracked. Mike helped me choose the best system. Everything's encrypted. Nothing's unhackable. Torres spoke into his radio, relaying the new information. The response came back immediately. Confirmed breach of secure home systems, multiple clients affected. Olivia's stomach dropped. How many other houses had they hit? How many other people's lives had they invaded? A new sound came from inside her house. The scraping of furniture being moved. They're fortifying positions, someone said over the radio. The negotiator approached their car. Ms. Johnson? I'm Sarah Reeves. May I join you? Olivia nodded, sliding over to make room. Reeves slipped into the back seat, her vest crinkling against the leather. I understand you're a nurse at Metro General? Yes. Emergency department. Night shift? Usually. Today was a coverage shift for her. Olivia stopped. How did they know I'd be gone? The schedule change was last minute. Reeves exchanged looks with Torres. We're looking into a possible inside connection at the hospital. Another crash from inside the house. Closer to the front door this time. They're getting anxious, Reeves noted. Have they made any demands? Just the texts. Olivia handed over her phone. They knew my schedule. Knew when I'd be home. Reeves read through the messages, her expression neutral. Classic intimidation tactics. They want you scared. It's working, Olivia whispered. The radio crackled again. Movement at rear entrance. They're testing the kitchen door. Through her living room window, Olivia could see flashlights moving. The intruders had killed the main lights, working now in the dim glow of her table lamps. Ms. Johnson, Reeves's voice was calm, professional. In your work, do you have access to any sensitive information? Patient records? Medication logs? The implication hit her. You think that's what they're after? Professional crew like this? They're not here for your TV. Another text arrived. Better hope those hospital records are backed up. There, Olivia's hands clenched. The pharmacy records. I signed off on a narcotics audit last week. Found some discrepancies. Torres was already radioing it in. Possible connection to hospital pharmacy. Need immediate check on recent audits. The response came fast. Metro General confirms narcotics audit filed Tuesday. Several employees flagged for investigation. Reeves nodded slowly. Now we know why they're here. A new voice came over the radio. Mike's voice, breach team in position. Waiting for go-ahead? Not yet, Reeves responded. Let me try contact first. She pulled out a phone, different from the standard police units. We'll call the number they've been texting from. Olivia watched as Reeves dialed. 1 ring, 2 rings, 3. A voice answered. Male and cold. Took you long enough. This is negotiator Sarah Reeves. Who am I speaking with? Someone who's going to walk out of here. With what we came for? Let's talk about that. What exactly did you come for? A laugh, sharp and humorless. Asked the nurse. She knows. Olivia's throat tightened. They wanted the audit records. Evidence of who'd been stealing from the hospital pharmacy. We can work something out, Reeves said calmly. No one needs to get hurt. Too late for that. Check your nurse's computer files. If you can find them. The line went dead. Torres was already on his radio. Need immediate tech support. Remote access to target computer system. They destroyed my computer? Olivia's voice shook. Maybe. Reeves kept her tone neutral. Or maybe they're bluffing. A new sound came from inside the house. A printer running. They're printing something, Olivia realized. My home office. I have backups on my hard drive. The radio erupted with activity. Officers reporting movement, positions, possibilities. How many ways out of your office? Torres asked. 1 door. Window faces the backyard. Olivia's diagram had grown more detailed, showing every possible exit. But the window's painted shut. I never got around to fixing it. More sounds from inside. Papers shuffling. Drawers opening and closing. They found something, Reeves murmured. A new text arrived. Thanks for keeping such detailed records, nurse. These will be very useful. Olivia's hands began to shake again. All my case notes. Patient files. The audit records. Everything's on that drive. Breach team ready. Mike's voice came over the radio. Say the word. Reeves held up her hand. Wait. Let me try one more time. She dialed the number again. This time it went straight to voicemail. They're done talking, Torres said. Through the window, Olivia watched as more shadows moved through her house. They were gathering something, preparing. The radio crackled one final time. All units stand by. Breach team in final position. Olivia closed her eyes. Somewhere in that house, strangers were rifling through her life, reading her notes, taking her evidence. When she opened her eyes, the shadows had stilled, waiting, just like everyone else. The voice came through Olivia's phone speaker, distorted but familiar. Too familiar. Last chance, nurse. Walk away now. Her hand froze on the phone. She knew that voice. Had heard it just last week, complaining about inventory procedures in the pharmacy. Kevin? The name slipped out before she could stop it. Silence on the other end. Then a laugh, cold and sharp. Shouldn't have said that, Olivia. The line went dead. Kevin Masters, she told Therese, her voice shaking. Night shift pharmacy tech. He was one of the ones flagged in my audit. Torres spoke rapidly into his radio. Mike's response came back immediately. Masters as priors. 2 counts of pharmaceutical theft in Wisconsin. Change his name before applying at Metro General. Reeves leaned forward. Ms. Johnson, what exactly did you find in that audit? Discrepancies in the narcotic counts. Oxycodone, fentanyl, morphine. Always on Kevin's shifts. Olivia's hands clenched in her lap. I reported it to hospital security on Tuesday. The day before the white van appeared, Torres noted. A crash from inside the house made them all jump. Glass shattering closer to the front door now. They're getting desperate, Reeves said. How many people work with Masters in the pharmacy? 3 regulars on night shift. But last week, Olivia stopped, another realization hitting her. Last week we had a temp. Big guy, former military, he said. Worked 2 shifts and never came back. Name? Marcus. Marcus something. He and Kevin seemed to know each other. Torres was already checking his tablet. Marcus Denton. Discharged from Army Rangers 3 years ago. Multiple assault charges. The radio crackled. Movement at the back door. They're testing exits. Through her living room window, Olivia saw flashlights moving erratically. The intruders were running out of time, and they knew it. Her phone buzzed with another text. Should have minded your own business, Olivia. Some things aren't meant to be found. They're not just after the audit records, she said slowly. There's something else. Something bigger. Reeves nodded. Hospital pharmacies are gold mines for drug rings. But they need someone on the inside to falsify records. Like a pharmacy tech with a record of theft, Torres added. The radio came alive with Mike's voice. Background check complete on Masters. Known associate of the Carson Heights drug ring. They've hit 3 other hospitals in the past year. Olivia's stomach turned. The Carson Heights ring was notorious. They didn't just steal drugs, they eliminated witnesses. More movement inside her house. Shadows passing quickly by windows, gathering near the back. They're preparing to run, Reeves said into her radio. All units be advised. A new sound cut through the night. A phone ringing, but not Olivia's. The sound came from inside the house. Someone's calling them, Torres said. The ringing stopped. Then, clear through the quiet street, a voice. We've got company coming. Clean it and clear out. Olivia recognized that voice too. Marcus, the temp who'd disappeared. The sound of furniture moving followed. Then footsteps, heavy and purposeful, moving toward her home office. They're destroying evidence, Torres realized. Mike's voice came urgent over the radio. Request immediate permission to breach. They're going to torch the place. Reeves was already moving, speaking rapidly into her radio. All units prepare for immediate breach. Suspects considered armed and dangerous. Olivia watched as the SWAT team moved into final positions. She could see Mike behind his tactical shield, face set in grim determination. Her phone lit up one last time. Hope you've got good insurance, nurse. The smell hit her then. Gasoline. They were going to burn her house down, destroy everything inside. All the evidence, all her possessions, all her memories. Now, Mike's voice commanded over the radio. Breach now. Everything happened at once. The front door burst inward with an explosion of wood and metal. Flashbangs detonated, their light turning night into day for split seconds. Dark figures rushed into her house, weapons raised. Police! On the ground! Gunshots. 2, 3, for in rapid succession. A scream from inside. Male, filled with pain and rage. More running footsteps. Breaking glass from the back of the house. Suspects fleeing through rear entrance. Olivia pressed herself against the car seat as officers rushed past, converging on her backyard. More shouting. More footsteps on wet grass. One down in the living room. Second suspect cornered in kitchen. Third heading for perimeter fence. Through her window, Olivia saw someone jump her back fence. Officers in pursuit. Flashlights cutting through darkness. More gunshots. A cry of pain. Suspect down in Thompson's yard. Need medical. The radio chatter became a blur of voices and codes. Officers securing rooms, clearing corners, calling for paramedics. Then Mike's voice, clear and controlled. House secured. 3 suspects in custody. Fire department needed for gasoline cleanup. Reeves touched Olivia's arm. Stay here. Let them clear everything first. But Olivia barely heard her. Through her living room window, she could see the damage. Her couch overturned. Bookshelves toppled. Picture frames shattered on the floor. And there, in the middle of it all, a figure lay face down in handcuffs. Kevin Masters, the trusted pharmacy tech who tried to destroy her life. Ms. Johnson. Torres's voice seemed to come from far away. We need to know exactly what was in those audit records. Olivia forced herself to focus. Everything. Dates, times, amounts, security footage references, employee ID numbers used to access the system. She swallowed hard. And something else? Something I hadn't reported yet. What? Discrepancies in the patient records. Terminal patients prescribed 10 times the normal dosage. Deaths that didn't match their conditions. Her voice shook. I was going to report it tomorrow. Torres and Reeves exchanged looks. They weren't just stealing drugs, Reeves said quietly. They were killing patients and covering it up. The radio crackled again. Detective, you need to see this. Found something in the suspect's car. Olivia watched as Torres walked to a car parked 2 houses down. When he returned, his face was grim. Lists, he said. Names, addresses. Other nurses who filed reports. How many? Reeves asked. Dozen, maybe more? Torres looked at Olivia. You weren't the first stop tonight. Just the first one who wasn't home. The implications hit her like a physical blow. If she hadn't worked late, if she hadn't seen the open door, if she'd gone inside, her phone buzzed one final time. Not from the unknown number, but from Mike. It's over. You're safe. We got them all? But looking at her destroyed home, at the gasoline-soaked floors and shattered memories, Olivia knew it wasn't over. It was just beginning. Olivia sat in an unmarked police car, watching as crime scene technicians moved through her house. Red and blue lights painted the street in alternating colors, throwing strange shadows across her neighbors' faces as they gathered in small groups, whispering and pointing. Your computer's intact, Torres said, returning from his latest inspection. They try to wipe it, but our tech team thinks they can recover everything. Her hands trembled around the paper cup of cold coffee someone had given her. The patient files? Safe. They didn't have time to destroy them. He paused, checking his notepad. We need to talk about those terminal patients you mentioned. A paramedic truck rolled past, carrying Kevin Masters to the hospital. He'd taken a bullet in the shoulder during the breach. The same hospital where he'd worked, where he'd helped kill people. 6 patients, Olivia said, her voice hollow. All in the past 3 months. All terminal but stable. Then sudden crashes during night shifts. Masters' shifts? She nodded. The medication logs showed massive overdoses. But the computer records were clean. Someone changed them after the fact. Someone with administrative access, Torres noted. The realization hit her. Dr. Phillips. He signed off on all the deaths. Said they were expected complications. Torres spoke into his radio, relaying the information. The response came back immediately. Phillips not at home. Car gone. Airport police notified. Another piece of the puzzle clicking into place. The doctor who never questioned the deaths, who always worked the same shifts as Masters. Ms. Johnson. Reeves appeared at the car window. We found something you need to see. Olivia followed her across the lawn, past evidence markers and crime scene tape. Her front door hung crooked on broken hinges. Inside, the destruction was worse than she'd imagined. Every drawer emptied, every cabinet ransacked. The smell of gasoline still heavy in the air. In your office, Reeves said. The small room off the living room had been her sanctuary. Now papers covered the floor like snow, her desk drawers pulled out and overturned. But it was what was on her computer screen that made her stop. They were accessing the hospital's main database, a tech explained, pointing to the open windows. Using your credentials. Olivia stared at the screen. Patient files, medication logs, security protocols, all open, all being systematically erased. They weren't just covering their tracks, she said slowly. They were setting me up, making it look like I was deleting evidence. Classic frame job, Torres agreed. If we hadn't caught them in the act, he didn't need to finish. She'd have been blamed for everything. The missing drugs, the altered records, the patient deaths. Her phone buzzed. A text from the hospital administration. Emergency staff meeting called for 6 a.m. All personnel required to attend. They're going to announce the arrests, Reeves said. This goes way beyond your house, Ms. Johnson. You helped break open something huge. Movement in the doorway made them turn. Mike stood there, still in his tactical gear, face streaked with sweat. Found this in Masters' car, he said, holding up a manila envelope. You're going to want to see it. Inside were photographs. Olivia at work. Olivia at home. Olivia checking her mail. Walking to her car, shopping for groceries. They've been watching me for weeks, she whispered. Not just you. Mike spread more photos on her desk. Other nurses, other hospitals. Each one marked with dates and times. Their whole operation, Torres said. Multiple hospitals, multiple states. Using terminal patients to cover their drug ring. A new sound cut through the night. Helicopters growing closer. FBI, Reeves explained. This just went federal. Through her office window, Olivia watched as black SUVs pulled up. Agents in windbreakers marked FBI emerged, already coordinating with local police. Her phone buzzed again. Another text from the hospital. Dr. Phillips found attempting to board flight to Mexico. In custody. It's over, Mike said softly. We got them all? But Olivia looked at her destroyed home, at the photos of her going about her life, unaware of the eyes watching her. At her computer screen, showing the failed attempt to frame her. No, she said. There's more. Has to be. She turned to her computer, fingers flying over the keyboard. Past the deleted files, past the altered records. There, she pointed. Look at the access logs. Someone's been logging in remotely, using admin credentials that don't exist. The tech leaned in. Ghost accounts. Professional work. These people had serious backing. Torres was already on his radio. Need full digital forensics team. Possible corporate involvement. Pharmaceutical companies, Olivia said suddenly. Check which ones supplied the drugs that went missing. More FBI agents entered her office, speaking in low voices, taking notes. Words like conspiracy and RICO floating in the air. Her phone lit up with a final text. Not from Masters or his crew. From a number she recognized, the hospital board chairman. We need to talk. Privately. Got him, Torres said, reading over her shoulder. The last piece. Outside. More vehicles arrived. More agents. More evidence teams. Her quiet suburban street transformed into command central for a major federal investigation. Mike touched her arm. You should get some rest. There's a hotel room ready. But Olivia shook her head. I need to see this through. She looked around her destroyed office. At the evidence of how close she'd come to losing everything. At the proof of corruption reaching into the highest levels of hospital administration. They came after me, she said quietly. Try to destroy my life. Frame me for their crimes. And now they're going down, Mike assured her. All of them. The FBI agent in charge approached, badge out. Ms. Johnson, we're going to need a detailed statement. Everything you discovered, everyone involved. Olivia straightened her shoulders. She was tired, scared, angry. But mostly, she was ready. Start with Dr. Phillips, she said. I'll tell you everything. The agent nodded, pulling out a recorder. Around them, evidence teams continued their work. Outside, more press arrived, cameras flashing in the pre-dawn darkness. Somewhere in the distance, more sirens approached. More arrests coming. More pieces of the conspiracy falling into place. And in her destroyed office, surrounded by the wreckage of her old life, Olivia Johnson began to talk. The night wasn't over yet. The FBI command center had taken over Olivia's living room. Laptops covered her coffee table, screens showing security footage from multiple hospitals. Agents spoke in hushed tones, coordinating raids across 3 states. We've got movement at Metro General, an agent called out. Multiple subjects attempting to access the pharmacy. Olivia leaned forward, watching the grainy security feed. She recognized the night shift workers, all of them connected to Masters and Phillips. Take them, the lead agent ordered into his radio. On screen, tactical teams converged on the hospital pharmacy. More pieces of the conspiracy falling into place. Ms. Johnson, a young agent approached with a tablet. We need you to confirm something. These access logs from last month. Are these normal patterns? She studied the screen, nurses' training kicking in. No. Look at the timestamps. Nobody pulls that much fentanyl for a routine night shift. Unless they're not logging the real amounts, Mike added. He hadn't left her side since the breach. More alerts popped up on the command screens. More raids in progress. More arrests being made. Director wants to move on the chairman, an agent reported. Need probable cause. Olivia's fingers flew over a keyboard, pulling up hospital board meetings. Here. Every time we reported shortages, he pushed through orders for 3 times the replacement amount. From specific suppliers, Mike noted, pointing at the records. The lead agent nodded. Give me a warrant. Now. Outside, the street had become a media circus. News vans lined the curb. Reporters held back by police tape. Cameras flashed each time someone entered or left her house. Her phone hadn't stopped buzzing. Texts from coworkers, from patients, families, from investigators. Everyone wanting to know what she'd seen, what she'd found. Another one going down, an agent called out. Security footage showed a pharmaceutical executive being led out of his home in handcuffs. Olivia watched the screens, remembering the patients who'd died. The families who'd never known the truth. The system that had failed them all. Ms. Johnson, the lead agent approached. We're ready to move on the chairman. But we need you to do something first. What? Call him. Set up a meeting. Get him talking. Her hand trembled as she reached for her phone. The chairman's number still showed in her recent texts. You don't have to do this, Mike said quietly. But she was already dialing. 1 ring. 2 rings. Olivia. The chairman's voice was smooth, controlled. I was hoping you'd call. We need to talk, she said, forcing her voice steady. About what really happened. My office. 1 hour. No. The hospital chapel. Neutral ground. A pause. Fine. Come alone. The call ended. Agents were already moving, preparing equipment. Wire her up, the lead agent ordered. The next few minutes passed in a blur. Technicians fitting her with a hidden microphone. Agents reviewing her story, coaching her on what to say. Keep him talking, the lead agent instructed. We need him to confirm the connection to the suppliers. Mike watched from the doorway, face tight with worry. I don't like this. It's the only way, Olivia said. More updates from the field. More arrests. More evidence of how deep the conspiracy went. Team in position at the hospital, an agent reported. Chapel secured. Olivia looked around her destroyed home one last time. Evidence markers dotted the floors. Crime scene tape crossed her doorway. Nothing would ever be the same. Let's go, she said. The drive to the hospital felt surreal. Streets she'd driven hundreds of times now filled with unmarked FBI vehicles. Agents disguised as patients, visitors, staff. The hospital itself was a hive of activity. Real emergencies mixed with undercover operations. More arrests being made quietly, away from public view. Remember, the lead agent said through her earpiece. Keep him talking. Get him to explain the supply chain. The chapel stood quiet, its stained glass windows dark. Inside, rows of empty pews waited. The chairman stood at the altar, back turned. Lock the doors, he said without turning. Olivia's hand touched the lock. Agents hidden in the confessional watched through thermal cameras. It's done, she said. The chairman turned. His usual polished appearance was gone. His eyes were red, his tie loose. You've caused quite a mess, Olivia. People died, she said. Patients under our care. Necessary sacrifices. For what? Money? He laughed, a harsh sound in the quiet chapel. You think too small. This goes beyond money. Beyond one hospital. Beyond one city. Tell me. And he did. The whole operation laid out in precise detail. The pharmaceutical companies manufacturing excess drugs. The hospital networks distributing them. The doctors and staff paid to look the other way. Billions of dollars, he said. A perfect system. Until you started asking questions. Through her earpiece, the lead agent whispered, We've got it. Move in. But the chairman was still talking. Did you really think your security system at home was the only thing we compromised? Your car? Your phone? Your life? Olivia's blood ran cold. What did you do? The same thing we do to everyone who threatens us. He reached into his jacket. We eliminate the problem. The chapel doors burst open. FBI agents swarmed in, weapons drawn. Federal agents, hands where we can see them. The chairman's hand emerged holding not a weapon, but a phone. On its screen, a single message: execute contingency plan. Alarms began blaring throughout the hospital. Fire alarm, security alarms, every system going haywire at once. What did you do? Olivia demanded. His smile was cold. Anything can be hacked. Anything can be erased. Anyone can have an accident. Chaos erupted outside the chapel. People running. Machines failing. Systems crashing. All units move in, the lead agent ordered. Secure every terminal, every server, every record. The chairman offered his wrist for the handcuffs, still smiling. Too late. It's already done. Olivia ran from the chapel, Mike close behind. The hospital corridors were in chaos. Staff fighting to keep equipment running. Patients being evacuated. Her access card blinked red at the pharmacy door. Every system locked down. We need to get to the servers, she said. But looking at the panicked faces around her, at the failing systems and compromised security, she knew the chairman was right. The night wasn't over. It was just reaching its climax. Red emergency lights pulsed through the hospital corridors as Olivia ran toward the server room, Mike close behind. Around them, machines beeped in distress as backup systems fought to keep critical equipment running. We need to shut it down, she called over her shoulder. The whole network? That'll kill all the systems, Mike warned. Better than letting them delete everything. Her access card failed at the server room door. The chairman's final act of sabotage had locked down the entire system. Move, Mike ordered, drawing his sidearm. One shot to the electronic lock, and the door swung open. The server room hummed with activity. Rows of blinking lights showed data being transferred, deleted, corrupted. Here, Olivia slid into a chair at the main terminal. Her fingers flew over the keyboard. Nurses' login failing again and again. FBI tech agents poured into the room behind them, equipment in hand. Kill the network, the lead tech ordered. Pull the plugs if you have to. Olivia watched as screens went dark one by one. The humming died away. In the sudden silence, emergency alerts echoed from the hospital corridors. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Check the obituaries tomorrow. Threats won't stop, Mike said, reading over her shoulder. They're not threats. She was already moving, running toward the ICU. They're warnings. The intensive care unit was in chaos. Nurses fought to keep equipment running on backup power. Doctors called orders over the alarms. Room 12, Olivia gasped. The witness. They'd moved him there yesterday. The surviving victim who could identify the pharmaceutical executives, who could testify about the forced overdoses. The room was dark when they reached it. The monitors silent. No, no, no. Olivia rushed to the bed, fingers finding the patient's pulse. Weak but there. Get a crash cart, she shouted. Medical staff converged on the room. FBI agents secured the perimeter. Mike stood guard at the door as Olivia worked. Pulse dropping, a nurse called out. Push AP, Olivia ordered. Her hands moved automatically, years of training taking over. Minutes stretched like hours. Machines beeped. Medications flowed. A life hung in the balance. Finally, the monitor stabilized. The patient's color improved. Someone accessed his 4-pump remotely. A tech reported, examining the equipment. Try to stop his heart. Olivia sank into a chair, exhausted. How many others? We're checking all critical patients now, an agent reported. No other attempts found. Her phone buzzed again. A text from Torres, chairman talking. Naming names. Outside the ICU, the hospital was coming back to life. Systems rebooting, equipment returning to normal. Ms. Johnson, the lead FBI agent, appeared in the doorway. We need you to see something. In the hospital's administrative offices, agents had set up another command center. Screens showed security footage, financial records, email chains. The chairman's confession gave us everything, the agent explained. Hospital boards, pharmaceutical companies, distribution networks. The whole operation. Olivia watched as faces appeared on screen. Executives, doctors, administrators. All part of the conspiracy. How many hospitals? 43. In 12 states. The agent's face was grim. Conservative estimate is over 200 patient deaths. Mike's hand found hers, squeezing gently. There's more, the agent continued. We found this in the chairman's private server. New images appeared. Bank transfers. Offshore accounts. Properties. They weren't just stealing drugs, Olivia realized. They were using the hospitals to launder money. For who? The agent pulled up another file. Ever hear of the Cayman Medical Group? Olivia's breath caught. The largest private hospital corporation in the country. They own 15% of all hospitals in the U.S., Mike said. And every one of them is compromised. The agent pointed to transaction records. They used terminal patients as cover. Altered records to hide the deaths. Build an empire on body counts. Outside the office, more FBI teams arrived. More arrests being made. More evidence collected. Olivia's phone lit up with messages. Co-workers. Other nurses. People coming forward with stories, with evidence, with proof. It's not over, she said quietly. No, the agent agreed. But thanks to you, it's breaking open. A commotion in the hallway made them turn. Agents were leading the hospital's entire board of directors out in handcuffs. Olivia watched them pass. People she'd worked with. People she'd trusted. Her phone buzzed one final time. A message from Sarah, the night nurse who'd first warned her about the break-ins. You okay? Looking around at the evidence of corruption, at the proof of how deep it went, at the lives destroyed for profit, Olivia typed back, No, but I will be. Mike squeezed her hand again. Ready to go home? She thought of her destroyed house, the shattered piece of her quiet street, the life she'd built, now forever changed. Not yet, she said. There's more work to do. The agent nodded, pulling up more files, more faces, more connections to unravel. Outside, the sun was rising, a new day beginning. But for Olivia Johnson, the night's revelations were far from over. The truth was finally coming to light, and it was darker than anyone had imagined. 1 month later, Olivia stood in her rebuilt home office, sorting through files. New desk, new computer, new security system. Nothing like before, but maybe that was the point. Her phone buzzed with a text from Mike, conference room ready. Everyone's waiting. She grabbed her bag, checking the presentation notes one last time. Today, she'd tell her story to a room full of hospital administrators from across the country. Today, the changes they'd fought for would become policy. The drive to the hospital felt different now. Armed security at the gates. New cameras watching every entrance. Trust had to be earned back the hard way. There she is, Torres called out as she entered the conference room. He'd been promoted after the arrests, now heading a new hospital security task force. The room was packed. Hospital directors, FBI agents, pharmaceutical regulators. All here to learn from what had happened. Ready? Mike asked quietly. He stood at the back in his new suit. The promotion to detective had come with the job of liaising with hospital security. Olivia nodded, taking her place at the podium. Faces turned toward her, some familiar, some new, all waiting to hear how one nurse had helped uncover the largest medical fraud in history. 1 month ago, she began, I thought I was just doing my job, checking numbers, following procedures, making sure things added up. On the screen behind her, photos appeared. Her destroyed house, the arrested board members, the evidence of corruption. What we found wasn't just about missing drugs. It wasn't just about money. It was about trust, about the oath we all took to do no harm. More images, patient records, death certificates, bank transfers, 217 patients. Her voice stayed steady. That's how many lives were sacrificed for profit. That's how many families never knew the truth. In the audience, heads nodded. Some wiped tears. These were the people who'd have to prevent it from happening again. The Cayman Medical Group investigation is ongoing, she continued. 32 hospitals have been placed under federal oversight. 8 pharmaceutical executives are awaiting trial. Her phone buzzed. A message from the U.S. Attorney's Office. Chairman took the deal. Full cooperation. But numbers don't tell the whole story, Olivia said. This is about people, about the nurses who spoke up and were silenced, about the doctors who looked the other way, about the administrators who chose profit over patients. New slides appeared. The security changes, the oversight procedures, the whistleblower protections. It starts with us, she said, with simple things, checking numbers, asking questions, not accepting the easy answers. The presentation continued. 2 hours of detailed procedures, fail-safes, accountability measures. By the end, people were taking notes, asking questions, sharing their own stories. "Thank you, Ms. Johnson," the new hospital director said. "Your courage changed everything." Outside the conference room, Mike waited. Home? One stop first. The ICU was quieter now. New security doors, new monitoring systems at the nurse's station. Sarah looked up from her charts. "He's awake," she said. "Been asking for you." Room 12 was different too. Additional cameras. Guards at the door. Inside, the witness who'd survived sat up in bed, looking stronger. "Nurse Johnson." His voice was weak but clear. "They said you saved my life." "Just doing my job," she said, checking his vitals out of habit. "No." He caught her hand. "You did what others wouldn't. You stood up." Her phone buzzed again. Torres. Final sweep of chairman's accounts complete. Money trail led to offshore medical research. Human trials. Unauthorized testing. Always deeper. Always darker. "Get some rest," she told the patient. "Your testimony next week will help make sure this never happens again." Outside, the hospital hallways buzzed with normal activity. Nurses making rounds. Doctors checking patients. The surface looked the same, but underneath, everything had changed. New faces in administration. New oversight committees. New anonymous reporting systems. Mike drove them home. Past the repaired front door, the reinforced windows, the enhanced security cameras. "You did good," he said quietly. Inside, her house still smelled of fresh paint and new carpets. Insurance had covered the damage, but some things couldn't be replaced. Her father's desk was gone, destroyed by the intruders. Her grandmother's china too. But on her new office wall hung something else. A framed letter from the FBI director, commending her courage. Her phone buzzed one last time. A group text from other nurses around the country. "Started our first oversight committee today. Following your procedures." Olivia smiled, looking around her rebuilt home. The physical scars would heal. The system would be stronger for having bent, but not broken. She sat at her new desk, opening her laptop. More work to do. More hospitals to check. More procedures to implement. "You don't have to keep doing this," Mike said from the doorway. "You've done enough." But they both knew that wasn't true. The chairman's testimony had opened new investigations. The pharmaceutical trails led to more hospitals. The offshore accounts pointed to darker secrets. "Someone has to watch," she said. "Someone has to check the numbers." He nodded, understanding. This was her new normal. Not just a nurse anymore, but a guardian, a watchdog, a protector. Outside, the street was quiet. Her neighbors had adjusted to the increased security, the occasional FBI presence, the media attention. Her security system blinked green, cameras scanning constantly. But now they weren't just protecting her home. They were protecting the truth. Olivia opened a new file, starting her daily checks. Patient records, medication logs, staff schedules, looking for patterns, finding connections, because she knew now what others had learned too late. Evil didn't always come with a gun or a mask. Sometimes it came in a suit and tie, with a medical degree and a boardroom title. And someone had to stand watch. Someone had to protect the oath. Someone had to make sure the numbers added up. That someone was her. The night that had started with an open door had ended. But Olivia Johnson's real work was just beginning. And this time, she wasn't alone.